I spent a year tracking toxic behavior in my video games. Here's what I learned about winning more games, de-escalating toxic players, having fun while gaming, and just generally being a good person. But first, the tragic backstory. I used to be a pretty toxic League of Legends player. I started playing League of Legends when I was a lonely, insecure high schooler. I was competitive, I wanted to be good at something, and that thing was not sports. And honestly, I felt insecure about being a woman in a hobby largely dominated by men. It felt like if I was bad at the game, then everything they said about me was right. But also, I really enjoyed the game, and I spent a lot of time playing it. So, what would it mean for my feeling of self-worth, or for my judgment of how I spent my own time, or for my parents' judgment of how I spent my time, if I wasn't even good at the thing I spent hours each evening doing? You might say, it's just a game, the point is to have fun. But that is the wrong answer, and I would have called you a scrub, you Bronze 5 trash 1v1 me bro. If you play multiplayer games, you've seen toxic behavior. You just have. For academic purposes, here is a little sample.
He says, LOL, run your mom's credit card. This is FIFA 19, bro.
You guys are fucking camping. Shut up. You're honestly so bad.
Scoreboard. You stink at this game, bro. Holy, you got so lucky. Oh my god.
This is arguably the biggest problem facing multiplayer games, and frustrating as it is, you can see why it's so prevalent. Players want to win, and when part of your success is contingent upon your teammates performing well, when a loss feels outside of your control, when you're frustrated that a game isn't going well, someone just might say something.
Hey, fuck you.
And then someone might hear that and just say something right back.
Actually, fuck you.
Fuck you!
Fuck.
All of y'all, I'm out of here. And now you're trying to win a 4v5 and everyone's having a terrible, terrible time. But it's not just strangers, and I am ashamed to say this part. I almost ruined 2 good friendships through League of Legends. Yeah, it was bad. We were all way too invested in the game and we would actually scream at each other. I had to uninstall the game because I realized that my friendships might not be able to take it if I kept playing. It seems so silly now, but I was a legitimately terrible person when I played these games. They made me angry, they made me mean, they made me unhappy. I was miserable after playing these games almost half the time. One viable option was to stop playing, which I did do for years. A few years later, when my friends asked me to play Heroes of the Storm with them, I was... Oh, you might not know what Heroes of the Storm is. It's basically League of Legends, except no one plays it. I was genuinely worried about opening up that box again. Would I be able to handle the intense feelings brought out by this just a game? How could it be just a game if it ruined my entire day? Hang on, I cannot take this trailer music seriously. But I was curious. Could I reshape my experience to incorporate these games healthily into my life? So when the pandemic hit, I made a little deal with myself. I would, 1, re-download Heroes of the Storm, and 2, defeat my toxic behavior at any cost. So I did what nerds do, and I made a spreadsheet. After every game of Heroes, I took notes on 10 things. I'm not going to mention all of them because I value your time on this earth, but here's the gist. Did we win? Was it an even match, or a total blowout, or a swing? Was there criticism? Was there toxicity? Did the toxicity stop, and under what conditions? Did I consider the game to have an overall friendly vibe? Did I have to mute someone? And the smallest thing, did we start out the game by saying hello to one another? I guess I just said most of them, didn't I? Let's be clear about one thing. I am not a researcher. This was just for me. And I learned a lot throughout this process that has taken me to a new level of enjoyment. So, from playing 132 games and taking down data, here's what I noticed. The most obvious thing, numbers-wise, but also the biggest surprise to me, was that toxicity was not as common as I expected. For being one of the biggest problems in multiplayer games, I didn't register as many toxic games as I thought I would. I honestly expected it to be like 1 in 2, or maybe 1 in 3, but only in 18% of my games did I note toxic behavior. It was crazy to actually see the numbers because it shows me clearly just how much a toxic game affects my play. If I played 4 games in an evening, I am vastly more likely to remember the 1 toxic game than the 3 that were, fine. But also, 18% is about 1 in 5. That's still really not great. With Heroes games lasting about 20 minutes each, if you sit down to play for 2 hours, you're more than likely going to have 1 game where your team is screaming at each other. And that is memorable. My friend pointed out that it was wild to him that I thought 1 in 5 games seemed low. And it took me a moment to realize that it might have been because, I set my toxicity expectations for what I remembered of League of Legends. But I was playing Heroes of the Storm. Every game is a different beast, but I expected that MOBAs would be MOBAs would be MOBAs. What is a MOBA? Okay, yes. A MOBA is a multiplayer online battle arena, a ridiculously unspecific name for what is a highly specific genre of game. Heroes of the Storm and League of Legends are both MOBAs, and many games are not MOBAs, despite also being multiplayer online battles that take place in arenas. No, I do not know why we name game genres like this. But yes, MOBA games are notoriously toxic. But apparently not to the same degree. So why is that? Well, you see, there are 3 legs to the triangle of toxicity, and one of them is, of course, the players. League and Heroes have different player bases, and the people playing Heroes are okay with the fact that this is a game that nobody cares about. You tell other gamers that you play Heroes of the Storm, and they either go, "What's that?" or "Lol, why?" The Heroes fanbase knows that we're playing a dead game that other MOBAs make fun of. Multiple times I have been in-game and seen someone say, "Ugh, man, sorry, I blew that team fight." And someone would reply, "Lol, relax, dude, it's HOTS." You do not play Heroes for fame and glory. You barely play Heroes for a functional game client. That being said, one of the reasons I started playing Heroes again instead of League of Legends is that I could not get League to reliably launch on Mac. Heroes had been on life support for years by that point, and it still had a better Mac client. Hey, Riot, what gives? Mac gamers are real, I swear we're real gamers. Oh, look, Diablo 4 isn't available on your platform. Oh. But even before HOTS was dead, there was something special about it that I felt made it easier for players to maintain their mental health. For one thing, it never had all chat. Oh, all chat. I remember those days.
I'm a Riven main, and let me just say, you should never play Riven again.
Lol, you only killed me because your jungler came to save you. You can't win lane, so you need a babysitter. Aw, look at the baby.
Literally, all chat is just the ability to talk to the enemy team as well as your own team.
Lol, that was the worst ult I've ever seen.
But see, this is a relic of the past for me because Heroes of the Storm never had all chat. You could never talk to the enemy team. That's one of those things that they decided from the start. No all chat. You do not get to have all chat. We cannot trust you with all chat. And they're correct. God, there was nothing sadder in League of Legends than when both teams, friendly and enemy, piled onto one player.
Lol, our Lee Sin is working for your team. I know, right? Thanks, Lee Sin. MVP.
He sucks.
But like, as much as we feel that all chat exemplifies the problem with League of Legends, toxicity doesn't come from all chat. It comes from being pissed at the game. Individual players might be the vessels through which toxicity is expressed, but the way your game mechanics interplay creates the environment in which rage will, or will not, ignite. Think of it like a campfire, you know? It's like there's gonna be a spark, but does it catch? I don't know. How much random garbage have you thrown into the pit? Oh, a lot? Oh, it's only garbage? It's just one big garbage fire? Oh, nice. Heroes seems like it was constructed as a response to the elements of League that made it the most toxic. They baked this concern in from the outset, and they made a lot of tiny choices in their game design to make it easier for players to work together and keep a level head, especially during the early game. Which is why I think I see fewer toxic Heroes games than League of Legends games. There's less kindling. I'm working on a longer analysis of how the game systems in Heroes produce a better environment for player mental health, but for this video, let's just focus on one: First Blood, aka the first time in a game that someone dies. Winning First Blood does not offer special benefits in Heroes. A player just dies, respawns 15 seconds later, hops on their horse. You have horses in Heroes of the Storm, did I mention that? And they run back to lane. The announcer says First Blood, I guess. That's something. That's it. That's the only difference between First Blood and a regular kill. This is not how First Blood worked back when I played League of Legends. First Blood was mechanically significant. It gave more gold than a normal kill. And because a huge part of the early game of League of Legends required players to kill minions to get gold, if you gave First Blood, now your lane opponent has free time to farm minions to get even farther ahead. And you don't have a horse in League of Legends. Nah, buddy, you gotta walk, and it's slow. And you can see your lane opponent straight chilling up there raking in that cash, and your team is typing at you, "Don't feed a collie, OMG, our Riven sucks, you guys."
I'm a Riven main, and let me just say...
Is this not kind of hilarious? That every single game started with, generally in the first 5 minutes, a non-negotiable tilt event? Getting tilted is, as this Itaki user what the fuck is Itaki? Getting tilted is when a player suffers a setback, gets frustrated about it, and has it go to their head. When you go tilt, you're not thinking straight and you're more prone to making mistakes. If you're a game developer, think of your role in this cycle. If the first leg of the triangle of toxicity is the players, the second leg is the game systems themselves. Not just the systems we associate with toxicity, so not just all chat, not just text filtering, not just reporting systems, not just those cute little badges you can give to a player for being the most cool-headed or the best shot caller or the most GG heart. It's mostly the systems that we think of as the game. If I fed First Blood in League, I was ashamed. I was pissed because I knew the game was going to be measurably harder for me. God, let alone if I fed First Blood to someone else's lane. Oh, kill me now. The shame. I'm not saying players have no responsibility in handling setbacks gracefully, but this was a much bigger setback than it probably needed to be. It's a measurable way of making an early mistake harder to come back from, mechanically and psychologically. In Heroes, most of my games start with someone dying in a dumb way. A lot of my games start with 3 people dying in a dumb way. And nobody says a word about it, because it doesn't matter. It's so nice to be able to make mistakes and not feel like the next 20 to 40 minutes of your life are going to be worse because of them. If you can craft your game systems to avoid putting players in a frustrated headspace, you're gonna see a lot less of players taking those frustrations out on each other. My instinct is to call Heroes soft or easy mode because it feels less punishing, as much as this trailer wants you to think otherwise. Are you ready to play some video games? It's such an ingrained gamer insecurity, like, a real game makes you want to set your desk on fire. But honestly, the game doesn't feel less worth playing just because any individual moment feels lower stakes than a similar moment in League. It feels like a win-win. I'm still proud of getting to show off my skills, I still have fun playing, and if I give first blood, I don't have to talk myself out of a tilt cycle. I get to unclench because I'm not standing on a knife's edge between victory and disappointing everyone around me. Which, okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. This makes my next observation all the more aggravating. Even with everything I've just mentioned, still the most common type of toxicity I noticed in Heroes of the Storm is what I call the forfeit at 2 minutes player. If a productive way to handle a mistake is thinking, we can still win this, FF at 2 players seem stuck in a mindset of, this is so over. It was over before it began. Everyone should give up. Let's all go home and think about what we've done. Within literally 2 minutes, a player will start saying, wow, you guys suck. Let's give up. Now, okay, this is frustrating for a billion reasons. Firstly, a game is not over at the first mistake. And knowing that you have a player on your team who is this emotionally fragile can be a major stressor. Suddenly, you're in the position of having to play perfectly, or you run the risk of FF at 2 guy throwing a tantrum. Suddenly, you know that part of winning this game is managing the emotions of 1/5 of your team. When we're talking about players and game systems, and we haven't even started talking about the third leg yet, toxicity is not at its most frustrating when it's expressed by players through the system of chat, but rather when it's enacted by players through the systems we think of as the game. It's really hard to win a 5v5 team-based game when one person decides not to participate. Can you imagine playing pickup soccer and one guy gets mad and decides, no, and goes and sits down? But the other team doesn't acknowledge it at all. They're just still going at you full force. No timeouts, no subs. Too bad for you. And players know that this potential refusal to participate is a power they all have. Every player is holding a significant mechanical stick over everyone else's head. Heroes tried to patch that abuse of game systems with more systems, replacing disconnected players with a bot whose job it is to repeatedly run headfirst into the enemy team. Thanks, thank you. But you know what? The most toxic FF at 2 players will even circumvent that. Before the game kicks out an inactive player, it'll send them a little message like, hey, we're about to kick you out if you don't start doing stuff, please. So they'll just sit down and move just a little bit. Just a little jiggle. And the game goes, nice, okay, thanks, carry on, my work here is done. And you do not get a bot. Like, a toxic player, instead of closing the game and doing something else with their life, will monitor when they're about to get booted, just so they can actively spend a portion of their human lifespan to just be a little more petty. Hence me saying to this guy, hey, can you give us a bot? Like, can you at least disconnect? You don't even have to play with us. Just give us the terrible bot. It's better than no terrible bot, if only marginally. Watching someone else start to go on tilt is such a frustrating experience because you know the power that this player has if they decide to use the game systems against you. It feels so precarious and so disempowering. It can be enough to make you tilt because, this other person is totally outside of your control. You're just watching them like, oh God, please get a handle on yourself. All you wanted was to have a nice chill video game and you keep getting stuck with these jerks. Why can't they just calm down? This fight is no big deal. That death was no big deal. Why are you so tilted? So you want to yell at them. You want to call them a crybaby. You want to call them a dumbass. Now you're mad too. That inconsiderate jerk. Why couldn't they just keep a level head like me? Hey you. Keep playing. We need you. Fuck you. Keep playing, you dumbass. You crybaby. We're all having so much fun together. I love video games. These games are little provocation machines. They are the best example of what you should build if your goal is to make people as pissed off at each other as possible. These are games built from micro wins and micro losses, where victory and defeat are words with meaning to you, with people who are not your soccer team. They're anonymous. You have no loyalty to them. They might be drunk right now, and their actions affect your success. I think that's the other awkward thing about all chat. Like, we demonize all chat, but it's oftentimes not your enemies that you want to scream at. You're trying to defeat them. And ostensibly, your team is supposed to help. They're the ones you want to scream at. See, you got this handy little box for coordinating as a team, but it's also perfectly suited to let someone know that you think they suck and you hate them. Like, I'm up here winning my lane, and our jungler runs up and dives under their tower, and now my lane opponent has 300 extra gold to work with, and dude, you just completely screwed me over. What kind of gank even was that? My ship was tied to theirs. Or, no, it's the same ship. And if they keep poking holes in the sides, we're all gonna sink. There'd be one person doing poorly, or trying a new hero for the first time, or disconnecting and reconnecting because their internet was spotty, or they left their pizza in the oven and now their kitchen's on fire and they gotta go deal with that. And it didn't matter if it wasn't mean-spirited. It didn't matter if it was intentional. They were poking holes in my ship. Are you seeing the problem? Some of these things can't be fixed. If the first two legs of the toxicity triangle are the players and the game, this is the third leg, the immutable nature of online team-based play. This is the one that will be like this for as long as we have video games. There are 4 other people on your team who need to have a stable internet connection, some skill with the game, and pro-social desires that align with the desires of their teammates. And they need to have parents that won't tell them it's bedtime, save your game. I can't save the game, Dad. It doesn't work like that. Save your game. It's bedtime. None of those things are guaranteed, and they all affect your chance of success, which can feel unfair. It is unfair. Sometimes you're gonna play with someone who's new or bad, and no matter how well you do, you still lose. And that's frustrating. No matter how much money Riot throws into anti-toxicity campaigns, they cannot ensure their players will never have power outages. And, well, it also can't be fixed that competitive activity brings out intense feelings. We can't design around that, and we shouldn't, because that's part of the fun. I want to be invested. I want to win. Pretending that games can or should totally remove the potential for people to experience or express negativity is not how we can fix this problem. That's why no amount of someone telling me it's just a game had ever worked before. It didn't make me less passionate, less angry, less gratified, less anything. Because what does it even mean for something to be just a game? It was something I put a significant amount of time and effort into. I put part of myself into that activity. I formed friendships. I boasted. I derived some sense of worth and accomplishment from it. Because I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I'm sitting here playing a couple hours of Heroes of the Storm every week, and I'm no longer a little gremlin monster. Yeah, that's where that first leg of the toxicity triangle comes back into the picture. The players. We don't get to control anything. We don't get to shape the systems of the game. We can't buy our laggy teammates better internet. We can't even convince our dads that you can't save League of Legends. It doesn't work like that. You can't just start it back up in the morning. Everyone's gonna... I don't even know how to start explaining that one. But at the same time, we do control the most important part. Ourselves. Okay, I know that doesn't sound like a satisfying answer, but don't worry. We are not letting other people off the hook. We will deal with them later. Asking users to shoulder the burden of dealing with toxic behavior kind of tastes like victim blaming. For added perspective, I really encourage you to watch That Jess's video on toxicity in League, which correctly points out that game companies shoulder the responsibility for the way their systems interconnect to produce environments that breed toxic behavior. But I'm conflicted because Well, I'm not sure to what extent League of Legends and Rocket League of Legends can de-tiltify their systems without mucking too much with the feel of the experience, or losing the soul of the game, or totally pissing off the player base. But that being said, I abandoned League of Legends for a game that helps me have a healthier relationship with other people and my own mind. I don't know if my mental health improvements would make it possible for me to go back and enjoy League of Legends. I'm sure they're at least somewhat transferable, but I'm not gonna try, because I don't need to. I have HOTS. Unless Microsoft Activision Blizzard King finally turns the servers down, in which case I will no longer have HOTS. Please, Microsoft, please don't do that. Just add Master Chief to the roster or something and then leave us alone. Also, who the fuck approved that acquisition? Y'all are asleep at the motherfucking... But either way, I don't think we can have a non-toxic MOBA purely from the work of the company. As that Jess's video dives into, once toxic behavior starts, it has the tendency to go. Maybe you're having a fine old evening, but in your first game of the night you get paired with someone who's raging. And then in your second game you get paired with someone who's disconnecting. And then by your third game, when a player makes a bad choice and you're already so frustrated and God, can you just have one good game tonight? Maybe you're the one who snaps first. And maybe that's someone else's first game of the night. At the very least, I could intercept my role in that cycle. I think some of this curative work has to happen in the player base, if only, as a start, to help protect our own evenings. And for those of us who care, to protect everyone else's evenings too. So without absolving the game companies or other players, let's take a few moments to just talk about ourselves. First off, okay, think of it this way. Let's say that you always play games with your friend Dave. Dave loves games, but there's one problem. Dave is prone to toxic outbursts. Whenever Dave is around, there's a really good chance he'll snap at someone. And when he does, they usually end up snapping back. And that's when your games go south. Wouldn't you want to stop playing with Dave? Well, guess what? You're Dave. You are Dave. Remember Dave? In a MOBA, there are 2 teams of 5 people, and one of them is you. Every single time. You are the constant in all of your games. 20% of your team is you. If that person who is in all of your games is prone to toxic outbursts, then, well...
100% of my League games are toxic because I am toxic. I am not in danger, I am the danger.
If you decide that you're not going to engage in or with any toxic behavior, then that's 20% of your team's chance of being toxic gone right away. So for real, if you want to have fewer toxic games, that's the first thing that needs to change. And that made it easier to take my second step. Setting an intention. I feel like Tony Robbins over here. The video game space needs more motivational speakers. You guys want to join my MLM? We're selling bathwater. So let's imagine. I drop into a game of Heroes of the Storm, I'm cracking my knuckles, I'm doing my stretches, and a little gnome poofs into existence right on my desk and asks me,
Quick, tell me what is your purpose in this game right now?
I'd say, is that a fucking gnome?
Ignore that part. Tell me, what is your purpose in this game?
To win? Yeah.
Wrong answer.
Man, I don't know. I wasn't prepared for this question. For real though, what is the purpose of playing video games? I'd redirect you back to that Bronze 5 garbage I quoted earlier. For a lot of us, the theoretical point is to have fun. Or at least to be able to stand up at the end of a play session and go, awesome, I did not hate that. My journey toward awesome, I didn't hate that, started really small. I made a declaration. No matter what happens, I will not be toxic. No matter what people say to me, no matter how the game goes, I refuse to direct that frustration at another person. My primary objective in this game is to have fun. It sounds silly, but this ended up being extremely powerful. Now this was the goal I sat down with when that strange little gnome on my desk asked me my purpose. So you'll notice, this is literally just mindfulness. Having a goal in my mind during all of those micro wins and micro losses helped me evaluate them differently and actively instead of deferring to my gut reactions. And the more I changed my conscious reactions, the easier and less conscious it became. See, that's where this whole spreadsheet exercise became really valuable. Not in the actual numbers, but in inadvertently producing an environment for mindful play. It reminded me of when I kept an exercise diary. I'd go a little longer, be more likely to get up and do something even on days when I didn't really want to, because I knew I'd be writing it down later. And boy, when I was keeping this hot spreadsheet, I did not want to write down that my game was toxic because of me. Nope. Immediately, my games felt better. When I noticed toxic behavior, I was able to kind of notice it as an observer, not as a potential participant. Because now I had a mission, not to start typing. Observation 4, we can decide our own goals. Even if the game seems to be telling us what those goals are, we don't have to agree with it. We get injected with purpose whether or not we're mindful of it. If we don't actively set our own goals, we let the game set them for us. Kill good, die bad. Win good, lose bad. And once I started developing this new mindset, games started to feel entirely different. Like, you know what's weird? What's the difference between playing a game for 20 minutes? You get some kills, they get some kills, they win some fights, you win some fights, and then after one amazing team fight, your team rushes into their base and secures the win. Oh my god, what an ending, holy shit. Versus the exact same game, but you lose that clutch team fight and they rush your base for the win. It's the same 20 minutes of game, right? Up until the last 60 seconds? It's mostly a different color at the end screen. So should I be disappointed if I see the red screen? And validated if I see the blue screen? Like, I know we're supposed to think that lose is bad and win is good, but if matchmaking in Heroes is balanced, I should expect to see that red screen 50% of the time. And if I'm not enjoying myself 50% of the time, that's probably a hobby I should stop doing. If there's one thing I wish I'd added to this spreadsheet, it was, out of 5, how much did I enjoy this game? Because hidden observation number 5, whether I won or lost didn't have that much to do with if I had a fun game or not. It's so meta. I took notes on winning or losing as if that's what mattered. I was still thinking in terms of the language of the game. Do I see the red screen or the blue screen? I think when I structured this spreadsheet, I knew what I was getting at with, did the game feel winnable, or would I consider the game to be friendly? But nowhere in my spreadsheet did I explicitly account for, did I enjoy the time I spent this evening? I just find that interesting. So I'm trying to focus more on enjoying the moment, enjoying the act of playing, rather than just feeling satisfied if my team wins. Or, now, here's the Jedi Master version of that. Have you heard of compersion? Compersion is mostly a term in polyamorous circles for like the opposite of jealousy, basically. It's seeing your partner just going to town, just making out on the couch with some person who's not you and going, aw, I'm so happy they're happy. Now, what if compersion, but video games? I know this sounds like a total paradox, but one of the things that helps me take losses well is remembering how much I like to win. And so probably the other team likes it too. Aw, good for them. Whenever a team fight goes poorly, or we totally throw the game, oh, they must be so proud of themselves for pulling off that win. They must be feeling great after that team fight. I'll try to type it in chat too. Wow, they played that really well. Dang, their Gazlo is so good. That was a great ult. It's so dorky, but it helps. I'm serious, you guys. Remembering that the other people in the game are 9 other humans, usually, and that I'm actually not the main character of the universe, It helps me chill out and enjoy myself, even when things aren't going well. So, okay, that's ourselves, but we're still gonna see those toxic people. 18% of games. That's after I set this intention. So back when I was being toxic, it was probably a lot more games. But so, how do we deal with these toxic people if they show up? Well, look at this one instance from a game I had recently. I'm not saying this player was definitely going to turn toxic, just that I started noticing some signs. So, announcer voice, same as my regular voice. As you can see, we're on the Towers of Doom map, and the first objective is coming up here, here, and here. Tychus is preparing to face off with their team in mid lane. Our Muradin shows up pretty late, and we are super uncoordinated. Things are not going great. We totally flubbed this team fight, and that's when I see Tychus go over here, stand still, and start frustration pinging all over the map. And then die. And oh boy, do the pings not stop. We are 3 minutes and 30 seconds into the game, and this guy is mad. You play enough of these games and you just start noticing warning signs like this. I mean, it's a billboard. So Tychus respawns, and that time in the fountain was not as calming as one would hope. So he starts pinging the enemy towers. He could have just been saying, I'm gonna go push these towers, but I didn't want to take any chances. So I decided, you know what I'm doing can wait. And I headed down that way, which is good because he was just kind of AFK auto-attacking as the enemy team closed in on him. I joined the scuffle and their butcher backed off, and we got super lucky and managed to secure a kill on Nova. So I said, good job. And then things were fine for the rest of the game. This interaction pretty much encapsulates how I've tried to prevent toxicity in my games. A little show of support to a player that looks like they're starting to get frustrated. Praising what's going well. Honestly, that's just something I try to do more of anyway. When someone does a good job, I tell them. If someone helps me out, I say thank you. I have this as my emote instead of like a battle axe or a crying baby, so I can quickly and easily tell my teammates how much I love them. Hope you don't mind a little face cam for this section. I got really tired of cutting game footage. So I found an appropriately scenic location. We're gonna hang out here for a little while. We've been talking about a lot of negatives this video, so I wanted to end by singing the praises of the Heroes community one last time. When I re-downloaded Heroes of the Storm in 2020, the first thing I did was turn chat off. I had to see people, but I didn't want to hear them. If I could play in silence, sure, I'd still see people rage quit, but I wouldn't have to listen to it. Just let me play my team-based video game in my private little bubble of silence. But for some reason, I went back and watched a replay of a game I'd just played. And replays show you the chat, even if you've muted someone, even if you've muted everyone. And I remembered having a moment in that game that had really embarrassed me. I'd done something silly, and I died or cost the team a fight, and I remembered thinking in the game, oh god, everyone's mad at me. They're all yelling at me, they're all flaming at me. I remember that feeling settling into my stomach like ice. I always play a lot worse, and I have a lot less fun after that feeling settles in. That's tilt. That's guilt-based tilt. Everyone's judging me, I'm letting everyone down tilt. But when I watched the replay, nobody said anything. In fact, I could see the chat that I had missed out on, and it looked like they were all having a good time. 3 of my teammates were just casually chatting, giving the occasional good job. And whenever something funny happened, the chat would light up with everyone typing, oh, what? Oh my god, that was crazy. I started to wonder how many of those chats I had let myself miss because I was scared of the other 18% of games. When I embarked on this spreadsheet exercise, I decided to turn chat back on. Because if I could figure out how to deal with those negative moments and not let them affect me so greatly, I could have access to all of those lovely moments that were happening around me that I was just missing, just closing myself off to. I originally had a lot more spreadsheet-based observations in this script, like observation Q, toxicity and criticism are mutually exclusive forces. But at the end of the day, the most important observation was this. Observation 6, I had way more actively friendly games than actively toxic games. And I didn't mark a game as friendly unless people were actively talking, supporting each other, joking, enjoying the company of these other people they were with. These games make chat worth it to me. The challenge came down to enjoying the friendly games enough to offset the toxic ones, or to recognize opportunities to prevent a potentially toxic game from ever getting to that point. Like the Tychus example, I mostly try to combat tilt with positivity, play, and support, but I've gone through a lot of different phases of trying to de-escalate toxicity in these past few years. I've tried, that hurts my feelings, or if you keep insulting people, they'll get tilted and they'll play worse. Is that what you want to have happen? I was hoping that if I could remind other players that they're not just raging into a box, this experience is not only theirs, then what are the odds I get through to someone eventually? I was probably partially inspired by anecdotes like this one from Innuendo Studios.
I celebrated New Year's 2014 in the Boston Common with my girlfriend, and after ringing in the new year, we took the 2 a.m. train back towards her place in Providence. The train had a fair share of loud, drunk 20-somethings. And after a half hour or so of in-your-face revelry, a dude at the front of the train turned around and yelled at them, "You need to keep it down. It's late, we're tired, you're not the only people in the world, much less this train." And the exact moment he finished talking, someone yelled, "Eat a dick, man," and they all laughed him down and got back to celebrating. But here's the thing. After a couple minutes, the train car quieted down. It's one thing to blithely keep the party going without thinking how it affects others, and another when you know full well how it affects them because they just told you.
We mostly do this when the humanity of other people is theoretical to us. When they're strangers on a train, or avatars on a screen. Can't we bridge that gap in people's brains? I don't think gamers are worse. I think games make us worse. But it's too much typing. And I don't know if it helps at all, short-term or long-term. I want those people to be good community members in the future, but I also want my teammates to have a good game now. And if I'm over here poking the bear and that person leaves or starts raging louder, then that's not great. Now, if I react to negativity, usually it's to redirect and say something like, "It's still early in the game, we can still come back." Honestly, that's worked pretty well. And the biggest trick I have for intercepting my own personal tilt cycle, that, "oh god, everyone's judging me" feeling, is to apologize when I make a mistake. If my team is fighting and I'm farming lane, and I totally could have responded to that team fight, but I decided, it'll probably be fine, and I stay in lane, and then my whole team gets wiped and someone goes, "Sylvanas, what the fuck?" Sometimes the most graceful thing to do is accept the blame and say sorry. Even if I really don't think the team should have been fighting there, like, what do I want to happen next? I want all of us to move on and keep trying. Even something as simple as, "Sorry, that was my bad," can end negativity before it begins. I have, at this point, never had someone throw an apology back in my face. If I'm really screwing up, I'll say something like, "Man, I'm having a rough game, sorry all." And honestly, usually what happens is people respond with, "It's okay, no worries," or just not respond at all. However, this is as good a time as any to say this part. Use your judgment about when empathy is warranted. If Malthael is telling you to KYS because you missed your ult, throw him into the garbage. Toxicity is a word we use to express a wide range of behaviors, and there are some recurrent and unrepentant assholes who need to be removed from the community. The racists, the sexists, the people who use video games as an outlet to be a douchebag. This is where game systems are the only thing that can help. Banning, reporting, text filtering, that person's gotta go. They gotta get. They might still be able to work on themselves, but that's not work that you can do for them. At the end of the day, talking to toxic players is labor. And while I think it's awesome to invest in having a positive community, you don't owe anyone that time or energy, especially when they're harassing you. And so when someone is being too awful for me to handle at the moment, the best thing I can do is engage my favorite game system, the mute button. Observation number 7, the mute button is power. Mute often, mute early. Your mission, first and foremost, is to protect your own mental health while doing no harm. Letting someone rage quietly is sometimes the best way to do that. You don't need to talk to them, you don't need to indulge them. Toxic people might be young, they might be having a bad day, they might have a really sad relationship with video games. I was one of those people once, a teenager who kinda needed to remember that the other people in the computer had lives and reasons and lows and highs and feelings, good days and bad. It took me a long time to sort things out, and I kinda had to do it by myself, and it was worth it. Game companies do bear a lot of responsibility for creating environments in which it's easy to get tilted and go toxic. They should examine those environments they've created. But players can help each other create a community that's friendlier, happier, and that promotes better mental health to all, even to the currently toxic players. 'Cause yeah, some of them are shitheads, but some of them just need a reminder that it's just a game. Or at least that players who are nice and constructive do win more games if we all work together and be friends. Whew. This video has been all over the place. If you have similar stories of your own video game mental health journey, share them in the comments. I love reading what y'all have to say. Hi. I'm playing video games. And if you like what I do, consider pledging on patreon.com. I post drafts to all these videos there, and they change a lot in the edit, let me tell you. I also have some long exclusive content with more to come. It's only posted there, so if you want more of this, that's where you'll find it. A huge shout out to my top tier patrons, Sammy Polinsky, Robin Steele, Scott Graham Andre, Quasar Nebula, Margot Hutton, also Amphi, Morgan McCool, Nick Ha plus Swansong, Shelly Kelson, and Steve Kern. Y'all literally keep the lights on around here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.